Help support the show by joining the Patreon or becoming a YouTube member. Also, hit that like button and subscribe if you want more Browns-focused content. All right, if you're watching this video, the Cleveland Browns have selected Carson Schwesinger out of UCLA. Now, this is not a pick I think a lot of people anticipated. The Browns aren't really a team that feels like they value linebacker too highly, even though this kind of puts the evidence in an overwhelmingly different category because they drafted JOK in the second round. Now they go Carson Schwesinger. Maybe the Browns aren't the slaves to positional value that some of us thought they were a couple of years ago. But they take Schwes here, 33 overall. He's the consensus number 2 linebacker in this class behind Jihad Campbell. There are a couple of arguments to be made here before we get to the evaluation of Carson Schwesinger, which, look, I'm not going to act like I've watched a ton of Carson Schwesinger tape. I will as the weeks go on to evaluate this, but from what I hear from the people who do watch tape regularly, they like the pick. I've got multiple people to reach out to me to say, hey, they love this pick here for the Cleveland Browns. They love Schwesinger for the Cleveland Browns. But nonetheless, one of the arguments that I'm partial to is, okay, if you really felt like linebacker was that big of a need, then you should have considered moving up to 30 to get Jihad Campbell. Because even if Schwes is number 2, and I think a lot of people consensus Schwes second round grade, number 2 linebacker, I think Jihad probably had a higher grade than most on that board, and a lot of people like him a lot more, including myself. I would have been doing backflips if they would have traded back in to get Jihad Campbell. With Schwesinger, I understand why they did it. I understand what the thinking is. And it does bring up some larger questions about some other players on this team, but waiting to do it to 33, always going to be that question, depending on how Jihad Campbell's career goes, if you should have been more aggressive at the position and pursued him. I think that's a fair argument to have, and only time's going to tell what the answer is going to be here. But let's not mistake that with Carson Schwesinger is like not good. Apparently he's pretty good. Everybody who was in my chat that watched UCLA football tells me this guy's a beast. I have not, again, UCLA was not a very relevant team in the college football picture last year, so I didn't get to watch them a ton. And everybody I know, all the film nerds I know, I've reached out to give me good reports back on him. Last year had 18 pressures at UCLA, 4 sacks, 11 hurries, and 2 quarterback hits. He also had 100 tackles, only 11 missed tackles, so a missed tackle percentage of 7.6. Had about 50 stops last year, which is pretty impressive. A frame of 6'2", 225, so a bigger body there at linebacker. I believe JOK was like 6 foot, 225, so bigger body, bigger frame. He can add some more weight. I think that's going to be important when it comes to run stopping in the future. Was a pretty well-balanced linebacker as well. His best grade in Pro Football Focus was pass rushing, but he has a really solid coverage grade, really solid tackle grade, really solid run defense grade. So from everything that I can gather about Carson Schwesinger, he is not a reach at 33, a second round grade, and undoubtedly the second best linebacker prospect in this class, according to most people. And if linebacker's a need, then, you go ahead and you take it because there is a dip between him and the rest of the linebackers in this class. Here's the thing why I think Schwesinger took some of us off guard. This does not spell good things for JOK. Like, we just got to be real about it. I have been on the more optimistic side with Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, but them taking Carson Schwesinger, which is just such a cool name, by the way. Can we just revel in that? That's going to look really cool on the back of a jersey. And if he's good, Schwesinger, like, that's going to be fun to say. Anyways, It's like, it just sounds like a linebacker name, but let me stop letting the ADD win. ADHD win, my bad. With Schwesinger, it brings up the question of JOK, and here's the real. I don't think they make this pick if they feel great about JOK. When I had Tyvis on the show earlier this week, and Tyvis is in the building in Berea, right? Like, people don't know this, but Tyvis has a working relationship with the Cleveland Browns, especially the radio network. So he's not uninformed. And when I talk to Tyvis, and this is just his opinion, I'm not saying he knows anything we don't know, but this is just his opinion. He expressed to me that he thinks JOK's career's over. That shocked me. I wasn't expecting Tyvis to drop that one on me, right? But that's what Tyvis said. He thinks JOK's career's done. And when I talked to him about it, it was more or less a question of medical liability. And it's like, yes, technically, JOK could get cleared. It could be a situation where he could get cleared. But is any doctor willing to clear him given what the blowback could be if JOK has a bad reaction in his return to football? Think of situations like in pro wrestling with Bryan Danielson, Daniel Bryan, or with Adam Copeland's Edge for most of you, where these guys' careers were just halted in the middle of their prime for like 10 years because they couldn't get cleared from a neck injury. This feels like the final nail in the coffin for me, right? I have admittedly been optimistic about JOK, and maybe I was overly optimistic, but this is the one that makes me go, it looks bad. And it wasn't always looking great, but it might be one of those things where he's running up against a log jam, and that log jam is he can't get medically cleared from whatever doctors need to clear him. Now, the good news is that Edge did come back to wrestling. Bryan Danielson did come back to wrestling. They're wrestling right now, to this day. Bryan Danielson's kind of retired, but he still wrestles. So these guys did make a recovery and then come back to a very physical sport. And that might be the case for JOK. But what the Browns might have decided is, hey, it might happen 2-3 years from now. Who knows what he's going to look like when he comes back? Like, we just can't count on him anymore. And I think that's what this pick says. We can't count on JOK anymore. We need somebody else to be the future there at the middle linebacker position, because otherwise it makes no sense to draft a linebacker this early when you just signed one of your linebackers to a contract extension. So that's not a good sign about JOK. It's really not. When you look at the history of neck injuries, and I know it's pro wrestling, but these were real neck injuries, right? That's the reason I bring up the wrestling injuries, because these were real neck injuries these guys got that kept them out. And those are the only real examples I can think of, because this isn't very common in football. And you look at all of that, it doesn't make you feel great. Especially given what that situation is. So hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully JOK surprises us and he's back better than ever. And you pair Schwesinger with JOK. But this kind of has a bittersweet tone to it for me, because I love JOK. JOK is one of my favorite players. He's one of the first players that I highlighted on this channel and said, I want the Browns to draft him. And the Browns drafted and worked out, and he was fantastic for the team. But, is what it is, right? That's the nature of football. It's a violent sport. Hopefully he's okay. Now back to Schwesinger. The reason I feel good about this pick is the Browns have the infrastructure to develop linebackers. They have done a great job with this. Jason Tarver has been an excellent linebacker coach for this team. He helped turn Devin Bush serviceable. I think Ray Rags in my chat had mentioned that he had made Reggie Ragland serviceable at a point, right? So Jason Tarver knows what he's doing with these linebackers. He knows what he's looking for in his defense for these linebackers, and he knows what works in his defense. So if Jason Tarver is behind this pick, then I'm behind this pick, because he knows what the hell he's doing at that position. And he should, in my opinion, he should be one of the most well-respected position coaches in football, because of the body of work that he's put out. He's been really, really good for this football team. So one, that makes me feel great about Carson Schwesinger. And two, the other thing that makes me feel great about drafting a linebacker in general is the Browns' investment on the interior of the defensive line. Nothing makes a linebacker's life harder than having a bad interior defensive line in front of you, right? Because so much of what linebackers are asked to do are gap fill and get into small holes created by these defensive tackles and everything else. So what you really need for a linebacker to be successful and move around and be an impact player is you need a solid interior. The Browns have invested heavily on that defensive line, have given all the money in the world to Myles Garrett to continue to play here. You have given a second-round pick on Mike Hall, and then a first-round pick for Mason Graham. So you have invested heavily on that defensive line. You got a bunch of guys who can rotate in and out, and that's going to help your linebackers be free and allow them to make some plays here. Schwesinger seems like a pretty all-round playmaker. I'm going to bring in some folks who are more familiar with his game than I am to talk about him, and I'm going to get more familiar with his game. But that's the pick there for the Cleveland Browns. Carson Schwesinger, a name that you might not be familiar with, but maybe familiarize yourself with them. You might find out that this is a player you really like that the Browns took here. And look, Browns are a great place for a linebacker to go. Good defensive tackles, good secondary, and really good coaching at the linebacker position. So I wouldn't bet against the linebacker in this defense with this coaching staff, especially with Jason Tarver behind him. So my thoughts on Carson Schwesinger. Peace.